Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're gonna be doing some loose watercolor sketches with my brush pen on top. I haven't done these in a while, but I used to do them a lot before. I actually got reminded to do more of these because I found my old sketchbook and I forgot about this sketchbook for a long time. But I found it randomly and I realized that I never really finished it. And I really want to do that because I want to do a sketchbook tour of this one because there are some pieces here that I want to show you guys. This one is called the Limelight sketchbook. All of my other sketchbook tours have been the same sketchbook. This isn't a watercolor sketchbook, but I like doing watercolor sketches on them. The sizing I think is perfect, but I'm pretty sure that they have changed the paper on this one because this one is a lot thinner than my older ones, which is such a shame because I recommended this sketchbook a lot on this channel and they went and did that. So yeah, I haven't drawn in it in a while because of that, but I still want to finish it. So today we're going to be doing 4 standing photos because I really like how those look on this sketchbook format. And so the very first thing I do when I do these kinds of sketches is do the really rough anatomy guides, and this time I'm using my verithin to do that, so it's very light. I didn't want this to show when I'm doing watercolors because those are very sheer and I just don't want the anatomy guides underneath to show through. And if you guys want to know more about how I learned anatomy and how I do them, check out my anatomy video. I will be linking it in the description. I think of this stage as drawing mannequins, so I just want to draw enough to have a baseline to draw on top of. I don't really want to focus a lot on the details, but one of the things that I do like to make note of when I do these is to focus on what the chest and the hips are doing. I think those two just tells you a lot about what kind of pose the whole thing is doing, and it also makes it easier for me to just attach the limbs on. I usually like it when the chest and the hips are pointing different directions, like the first one and on the last one, because I think it makes the pose a little less stiff. As opposed to the third one and the second one, the chests and the hips are sort of just straight and looks like they're stacked on top of each other. This sort of just suggests a more stiff pose for me. So after doing that, I'm doing my favorite part, which is going over everything with my ballpoint pens. I really like the look of this pen, especially this is the Flexstick, I think, a red pen, but I used to just not mind the ink blots at all, but now I actually came to like those ink blots, especially when I'm drawing the clothes, because I use these really quick straight lines. I try to do really scratchy movements of my wrists when I'm doing that, so you see a lot more of these ink blots right where those strokes end. So I'm doing those lines. I find these really work really well for doing clothes because it helps to convey a stiff fabric. This stage just felt really therapeutic for me. Because I used to do these a lot, I didn't really need to think about what I was doing as I was doing it. It just felt really natural. Oh, by the way, my hands look like that because I had just dyed my hair black and I couldn't wait to do this stage. So if anyone's wondering why my hands look dirty, it's just my hair dye. And yeah, so my second one is my least favorite, I felt like, on this stage because she feels really restricted in her space. I should have added more I could have added more volume to her coat because that was the main draw for the photo. And also I think I made her arm look a little bit shorter than it should be, but I did try to fix it later. I do wish that I had provided more space for hers so I can fully like draw her out to be what I wanted her to look like in my head. But this third one I really liked. Part of it is because these kinds of pen strokes that I was talking about, I think it fit really well for the textures of the clothing he was wearing. And also because there's a lot more space on his left, the negative space that his clothes were doing were making it a lot more interesting. I was able to play around with the volume on his pockets and on his arm. So I really like this one. It was really enjoyable for me. But this last one I thought was gonna be the most difficult. Just by looking at the pose, I thought it was gonna be really hard, but it turned out to be one of the fastest that I did in this group. And it's because there isn't really much clothing I had to draw, not unlike the other three. And I felt like with her, I already set a good foundation for her body, and so I only really needed to pay more attention to where the folds on her clothes are and how to make the fabric feel like it's this stiff fabric that she's wearing that usually is the same for school uniforms that we know. So yeah, after that it was just a matter of exaggerating those lines and the darker areas, and the same for the third one too, which I came back to later on. So now that I did all of those sketches, we are gonna be coloring them. I used my Sakura watercolors this time, and I haven't used these in a while, but I really like how convenient it is. I like how I don't have to get up to get more water, because usually I keep my water brush filled. I think it's just clean up the brush with the sponges on the side. The only thing with the first one, I felt like I'm not really sure about the colors that I chose. I think it's just too dominantly purple. I could have added a lot more warmer colors to this one. It also would have helped if I used different colors for her top and her skirt to really exaggerate that skirt more so it stands out better. But I did try to add more warmer highlights towards the end. And on the inking stage, I'll be playing around with the shapes of her more, so it turns out looking a little bit more interesting than it is right now. And for this second one, I really like the colors so much more. I like the sort of brown yellow color of her coat, and also I'm using my favorite shade of blue for her pants. I think it's just perfect for painting jeans, and I always forget what it's called, but I will put it in the description. I have been told that it's a different color from all of the other colors with its name, but I will try to get more information about what kind of blue that is in the description. And I really liked that one, and I also kept her pants light to bring more attention to her sandals and her gloves, and I really like the effect on this one. I think I can play around with it more towards the end with the inking stage. And this third one I also really liked. I keep on saying this, but I tried to maintain a cooler leaning palette for him because of the one next to him being a warm toned piece. And I also let the highlights on him, a lot of the highlights on him bare, so it's just the paper showing through. And I mixed in this really muddied up looking yellow for the accents on him, just so I can cut through the dominantly cooler palette for it. But I really like this one on this stage. I think a big reason why is because it reminds me so much of my highlighter sketches before, because the watercolors on this one remained sheer, which is something I wish was the same for all of the other three, because I really like those red sketches underneath, and I felt like the watercolors overpowered the red. But in this last one, I tried a different angle because I really wanted you guys to see how the shape of the water brush really works well in painting the folds on clothes like this. Because of its shape, it really helps me do sharp lines, and when I'm doing more broader strokes, I can just push on it. I really like this water brush. I wish I had more brushes that felt the same as this one, but I've tried buying water brushes before and they just really didn't feel like this Sakura koi one. For the colors on this one, I did go with a blue base because I wanted this to look like it's a blue uniform, but I tried going over it with a yellow highlight, so it looks like it's still a blue uniform but on a warm lighting. And I really liked it while I was doing it, but now that I'm looking at it, I wish I would have done a lot, some kind of red to it. But now we are just moving forward to the inking stage. And initially I was just gonna do my gel pen. I sort of had this idea that I wanted it to have shaky line work so it doesn't look very finished, but I couldn't find my G-Tech one and I didn't really like the one that I had, so I went ahead and did it with my brush pen, and now it looks very different from what I initially had in mind because they create different effects on the drawing. The G-Tech pen with its really fine lines and sort of the shaky line work that I could get on top of the watercolors was supposed to give me this raw sort of look to the sketches, but now the brush pen sort of creates this very finished, dark looking, very stable line, so it's a very different effect on the finish of these watercolor sketches. My main goal for everything was really to just polish everything up so that their shapes will look clearer in contrast to the white background. And because I'm already using the brush pen anyway, I sort of just played around with it more and just really exaggerated those shadows to look so dark that they're just black. And then because I said I wanted more red for this first piece and more splashes of yellow, I went over it with my Posca pens because they are more opaque and just those lines would stand out more. And also I couldn't have gone over it with more watercolors again because the pens I used weren't waterproof. And then I just refined her outline a little bit more with darker brush pens and even went and cleared up the edges with my Copic opaque white, which is something that I did for all of them. I cleaned everything up, made sure that their silhouettes look good in contrast to the background. That is really just my main goal for this finishing stages, is to make sure that their outlines look good on top of the white paper really. And then went over with some of them with my Posca pens just so I can have a lot of these colors pop, because the watercolors were a little bit sheer and they weren't very opaque, so it was very hard to get one color that would just stand out of all of the watercolors that I used. So instead of trying to make one watercolor color stand out, I just went ahead and did that with my Posca pens. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Which one is your favorite? I really like to know. I can't really decide right now, but I'd like to know which one you guys liked the most. As usual, all of my reference photos will be in my Pinterest board, which will be linked in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you again soon.